loading snacks. What it do, snackers, snackettes, and snack X's? Your boy Gage is in the building, and with me is the homie Domingo.
Hey, what's poppin', people?
What up, Domingo? How you feeling, broski?
Man, it's crazy. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Listen, you all are now tuned in to Loading Snacks Weekly, where we get together once a week and we talk about things that are happening in pop culture. And today Jokes is running a little bit behind. He's supposed to be joining us shortly. We'll see what happens. Right now, it's me and Domingo running the show, which means we can act out. Jokes can't do nothing about it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Can't do nothing about it.
I have permission. Let's go.
I have just posted to the chat the link to our website. Please make sure you go there, check us out. That'll keep you posted and updated on where we're going, what we're doing, all that jazz. Just in case you don't manage to make it to the end of the show, where we will fill you in on that information. Also gives you a quick link to our Patreon, which is truthfully the best way to support us. And on that note, it is time for the 619 Hall of Fame.
Yes, so let's shout out our top tier patrons, starting with Anthony Cunningham, Marcus Houston, Susan Dortch, Tyrone Carson, Meticulous Skin, Alex Lee, Ellis Ember, and Kerbert Ferguson. Thank you very much. We truly, truly appreciate it.
Wow.
Indeed, we do. Always appreciate everyone. What's up, Heather? Great to see you.
Hey, Heather.
Hey, Candace. What's cracking, lady?
Hey, what's up? How you doing, Candace? What's up?
Listen, we got a little bit of a packed show. For those of you who are Patreon members who happen to be sitting here, I did post an update for you all. So before we dig too deep into the show, I'm just kind of going to explain a little bit about what's happening with this show in particular. We're doing a slightly different format as we move forward, trying something different in the 2026. And so for those of you who've been around, we're going to call it since the beginning. You will probably recall when we used to do hashtag ICYMI and
classic
hashtag WHHW. What had happened was I've actually had, some people reaching out. I miss those. I wish y'all would do them. And I've been looking at some ways to do that. What's going to happen now is that the beginning of this show is generally always going to be something very similar to the format of what ICYMI WHHW was, which will be that we'll take 2 to 3 pieces of, pop culture news information, share those here, talk a little bit about those things before we move on to the second segment of the show, which will always be from now on some kind of a list. We are looking at everything from like our top 5 X-Men movies to our top 5 favorite snacks. Just all kinds of things like that. We'll be discussing those kinds of things. We are also going to use that time to revisit some of our previous top 10s and stuff like that to see if we still feel the same way we did when we created those. Some of those happened a number of years ago and things change. We evolve, you know what I mean? We grow as people, individuals, and creators. So, looking to make a few changes. My man, Stephen Jones, the Auditorium. What up, bro? Love you, man.
What's up, bro? What's up? That's what happens when I come on the show. Everybody pops
up. Bro. Everybody, you know what I'm saying? They come on the woodworks. The folks pop up. So we're gonna be making some changes, along those lines, and then we'll kind of wrap up the show with some of our like honorable mentions, things that we're kind of keeping our eye on in news, or maybe some things in the list that we kind of, is an honorable mention. This is a little extra, something we may have wanted to add to the list. Candace said, I like it. Always love the ICYMI format. Well, I am glad to hear that. Hold on now. Forgot to type hi. What up? I mean, listen. Right now, right. Usually you speak specifically to Heather, and Heather's here. So, you know what I mean? Feel free to just jump in the chat and y'all rap with each other. You know what I'm saying? So, without any further ado, I want to get into the major pop culture news. Our first story is really about the changes. Oh, you go ahead, do it. Go ahead, do it.
Number 1.
Oh!
Taking it back, baby.
Old school, baby.
Mhm.
Yeah, Netflix is going all cash in on Warner Brothers.
Ooh.
So Netflix has amended their offer to buy Warner Brothers, changed it to an all cash deal. Um,
Wow.
there's been some back and forth between them and some push to speak specifically to the investors to
Mm.
try to get them to take an all cash deal that was being offered by like Jared Kushner and his folks, and them really saying that the deal that Netflix was offering wasn't a good deal. Um, so Netflix posted to their website today that they are offering an all cash deal. Still looking at like $27.75 per share. Um, and the people who own shares will still have an option to cash out their additional shares, with the possible sale later on of the additional properties that Netflix is not buying. Netflix is really only interested in picking up Warner Brothers big properties and really just Warner Brothers. They don't really seem to care too much about some of the Discovery stuff. They're not getting the cable channels and the sport, like they're not getting any of that kind of stuff. They're
Okay.
really interested in having ownership over the IP, which I mean, from a business standpoint, kind of makes a lot of sense. They can do a lot more with it. So, um, it's an interesting move. Them doing that means that the shareholders can probably make a decision more quickly. This is still something we probably wouldn't see until much later. Um, Doctor Who, we will still call you Doctor Who if you want us to. You say you miss your name no longer being Doctor Who. Feel free. You know what I mean?
That's a whole another story. I don't know about that one.
Yeah. What's up, man? Good to see you too.
What's popping? Ba, 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 ba.
So yeah, so I mean, look, Domingo, I don't know how much you've read into this or how much information you have. But
Mm.
again, the idea of Netflix making a purchase of Warner Brothers. What are your initial thoughts on that? Like, do you even think that feels like a good idea?
I mean, no, I don't actually know what exactly everything has to go with it. There's that word again. I'm gonna stop saying that. That's a drinking game.
Actually,
I did hear something about them with Sony today too, but that's different. Um, the Warner Brothers thing, I don't know how much Hollywood is really from what I hear, it's really going bad. And it's like
yeah,
everything actually has like far as the streaming, I'm not gonna say social media, but mostly just the streaming stuff and having your own things anywhere else except for going to the theaters and big film companies is really tough right now. So I think that if they're trying to really sell it because it's not doing much, take the deal. And then you talking about all cash. I mean, that's kind of crazy to walk up to a park bench for like 20 million, $80 million.
I mean the thing about it is, I guess for a lot of people, their concerns are like the consolidation of all the IPs beginning to fall under one banner and
Hmm.
not liking like one company owning so much IP, right, and having so much control over it. But
Wow.
I mean, the truth of the matter is, it's kind of almost already like that. And WB had, that means you're talking about Harry Potter, you're talking about the DC property, so your Batman, your Superman, like all of that kind of stuff, falling under that banner too,
Hmm.
and all being under Netflix. And again, like we've talked about it a little bit on the show before, but a lot of the big concern coming from Hollywood is that their fear that Netflix doesn't want theaters to survive. They want theaters to go away so that people don't really have a choice but to watch stuff like Netflix, which they already have a lot of control of, you know what I mean, over how much of that stuff is there. And so if they have control over those things, and that just kind of could put a nail in the coffin for theaters. Yes.
Or this would be some ingenious stuff right here. So now I'm kind of happy to see they're going to have something actually downtown where the old Woody's used to be at. So don't know exactly what kind of like employment or opportunities that come with that. But
Right.
fandom this. Let's say Netflix opens up their own brand of theaters in select places throughout the country and then offer to show the same thing that they have in there, but also at the house, create their own kind of experience.
Right.
Like they got the drinking thing, they got the club that they have in some places like that. So who knows?
Yeah. I mean, the with what they did with Stranger Things, because of the way the contracts were, and they couldn't technically sell tickets because it would violate the contracts that the actors had, so they couldn't actually sell movie tickets for those.
Okay.
So they did this deal with the theaters, with AMC and Regal Cinemark, where they sold vouchers, and the vouchers were really for concessions, and that was how people could get in to see the last episode of Stranger Things in the theater, was that they bought a voucher that gave them concession for the food. And what Netflix did was they allowed the theaters to keep 100% of the profit, which is a thing that just doesn't happen. But if they're in a position to take properties that they have that generally have only been available on Netflix, and in some way make a big deal about sending some portion of it to the theater or something like that, and then if that means that they could afford to give the theater 100% of the profits from something like that, because again, those people are then, if they ever want to watch it again, if it's not in the theater anymore, where's the only place they can go watch it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's Netflix. So if they're like, yeah, you can have 100% of the profit because we're going to get, you know what I mean? They're going to stay with us, or we're going to, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't lose Netflix subscribers by putting the last episode of Stranger Things in the theater. You know what I mean? If anything, all the people who went to the theater are people who are already Netflix subscribers. You know what I mean? So like, they don't lose anything by doing that. So it'll be interesting to see, how that pans out.
Right.
Andrew, what up? Says hello. Awesome appearance from Domingo. That's right.
Yo, what's up? I did hear they kind of stopped a little bit though. They're not necessarily, it halted in their actual subscribers just for a little bit, just a tiny bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, you could see that you don't bring in, like, there's a possibility, like, nobody is gonna go subscribe to Netflix to see the last episode of something that's 5 seasons long already. You know what I mean? You might have dropped off your subscription at some point, and maybe you're coming back for the 5th season, right? Because you weren't paying for, you know what I mean? But they're not gonna stop. They're not canceling their subscription because that episode is in, you know what I mean, is in the theater. Like, that's not a thing. So, I mean, look, we'll have to see what happens. Again, my thought process on it is that Netflix having ownership of that much IP, the best way for them to turn a profit out of owning all that IP wouldn't be to put it all on Netflix. It makes more sense for them to have ownership and then license that stuff out to Amazon so that Amazon can show it on Prime. For them to license it out to Hulu, to license it out to, everybody else, and just kind of piecemeal it, because now they have control over it. So it would make sense for them to take that IP and have other streaming services paying them to show that IP on their services, and it would give people a reason to go and subscribe to those services. So it really kind of is a power play that's very different, you know what I mean, for Netflix. Well, hell.
Gentlemen,
What up?
What's good, buddy?
Nothing much. Feeling pretty good. Feeling actually not too bad right now.
I'm glad. I'm so glad to hear that, broski. You know what I mean? So glad to hear that. They was starting to root for Domingo to take your place, bro. They're getting excited.
Listen, I got a whole nother worry right here. This is talk. We'll talk off camera about that.
Oh, but
you think about it though, man. I'm not to, we got 3 spots, but just leave it with that. It's like, you got to understand, if somebody's not old enough to really know, there was this place called Blockbuster that was Friday nights, hands down. Yeah. Before that, you had Earl's Video back in the day, and Hollywood Video, where stuff came out like literally like a year after. And you had to wait for VHS or wait for beta, stand in that line, write your name on the book, and see which person's coming in to bring the album, bring it back. And then it came that part where if you didn't rewind your stuff back, it was like an extra $5 or whatever they want to do. To the same company that challenged this whole entire world, and now from mail order red box stuff, now they rule in everything, and it's pretty crazy. So you got to think about the origin of that. So when you said this could make good sense, I mean, we've seen it come from one way to the next, so we don't really know. But I'm glad.
Yeah, I mean, that evolution isn't going to go away. You know what I mean? Like, there's always going to be something new, some new way to watch, some new way to, you know what I mean, to consume it, and could the deals that theaters had with companies like Blockbuster that said y'all can't, you guys can't put this out for a year. You know what I mean? Or it'll be available to rent, but you can't buy it to own it for you know what I mean, for a year. That kept theaters in business, right? And theaters needed that because even back then they didn't make money on movie tickets. We talked about it tons of times. They made their money in concessions. So, you know, it's an important move. Let's see. Andrew says, could Netflix do what Prime does, where if you're a Netflix subscriber, you can get tickets for Netflix movies? They certainly could.
Yeah, definitely could do that.
You know what I mean? They certainly could. They certainly could say, if you're a subscriber, you know, open your Netflix app when you get to the theater, pop up your QR code, and they'll scan this, and that's your voucher. You know what I mean? Or something like that, right? Or use that to claim it ahead of time. Like, there's any number of ways that they could maximize the idea of you being a subscriber, to give you access to it. Where if you're not a subscriber, maybe you just have to go and pay for a regular ticket, and maybe the theaters get to keep, you know what I mean, that money.
That side of it.
Yeah, it's just
that, and just, or you get exclusive stuff, like whether it be like the movie, maybe, hey, this is here's some previews for things that have not yet been announced, but you only get them because you subscribe to Netflix, something along the lines of that.
Bro, it could be as simple as a popcorn bucket. If you go to the theater and you show that you're a subscriber to Netflix and you got a QR code, you scan that. Wait, not you get the popcorn bucket. You get to buy
the popcorn bucket.
You know, but like, if you're not a subscriber, you don't even have the option. Like, again, if you think about how crazy people are going for the popcorn buckets, and truthfully, what popcorn buckets has done for the movie industry is honestly needs to be studied. Like, there should be a case study on it, because they got us, bro. Like, people who love to go to the movies tend to be the kind of people who are also collectors. It just like, it goes hand in hand. So it makes a lot of sense. So, we'll see how it pans out. Look at it. You know what I'm saying?
The monkey popcorn. Yeah. Just don't let the arm come down. The arm.
Listen, we not. We just. All right. So look, we're moving on to the next one. K, you're up.
Number 2. Oh, you heard in a minute. That's crazy, right?
So, in case you didn't see this today, TCL, the TV company, and Sony have announced that they have a deal. Essentially, TCL is taking over Sony's television business, which is a really interesting thing. The way right now, it's not a done deal, right? They basically have made a statement of intent between the two. Both companies have said, right now, the plan is for us to work together. TCL would take over 51% of Sony's television business, and Sony would own 49% of the business. And the TVs are expected to maintain Sony's name, the Bravia name, and so forth. But it opens up an avenue where we've talked, years ago, but several times, about where Sony is as a company and how profitability for them has been questionable over the years, and they had to give up doing VAIO computers, and they at one point were looking at going away completely from doing televisions, right? Sony cameras, a lot of that kind of stuff isn't the same as it was. And if you go back, a lot of that stems from a lot of the Japanese, not just television manufacturers, but electronics manufacturers. Back when that tsunami hit a number of years ago, it did irreparable damage to a lot of the business that they had and their ability to put product together and get that product over to the US. And that's when you really started to see a much bigger bit of the market share be taken over by your Samsungs and your LGs. Hold on, we got to show some love to Kidlet.
Oh,
Kidlet.
Hey.
You know what I mean? And Cuddy in the building. Classic number 2 countdown. Loving it. You know what I'm saying? Back in the building. You feel me? So Sony has really kind of struggled for a lot of companies like Panasonic, right? Kay can tell you, we sold TVs for years. Panasonic's, their televisions, their plasma TVs were some of the most incredible TVs you could get. and they were hurt immensely by what happened there, and they more or less pulled out of the TV business altogether here in the US, right? What Sony did to kind of combat that is they kind of went away from their lower end TVs and really kind of went all in on premium marketing and considering what they had, premium TVs. And so like if you wanted a Sony TV, you're paying more money. They're really pushing the high end stuff. But on the other end of that, what's happened to them is it has cost them. And TCL, being a Chinese company, they've been able to turn out really, really high quality TVs at a much lower price point. And so the two of them in combination, TCL having access to some of what Sony's tech is, and Sony having access to some of what TCL's manufacturing is, which rumors are that TCL has been a manufacturing partner for Sony for quite some time anyway.
I could definitely believe that.
There's a lot more.
So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Domingo, you got some thoughts on that?
I mean, honestly, I'm a Sony guy, and it took me a minute to get to that particular point. Everything was really, let me see if I get this right, unattainable.
Okay.
At one point, I know. I heard you say it. I thought I'm gonna use it back again. So to get that. But then when I first got my Sony camera, I loved it, and it took, I'm gonna say photography and video to a different level, but it just had a different look than everything else I had. And now when it comes to that, that's all I have besides DJI stuff and then whatever.
Yeah.
But TCL, just like Hisense, was like that was always in the game, always doing stuff. And you go to like concert venues and stuff like that, really places that care about like that, that have video walls and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it would be the one you see there.
That's right.
Then, again, for 2 years straight, I mean, on the back of my CES badge, TCL, they were actually on it, and Hisense. So Sony wasn't really there this year, far as like at all, which I was kind of shocked about. Panasonic was there, and they still got TVs. It's just that you don't see some joints. So that's why I was wondering why that part. But they're still heavy. But I don't know their records, and you're giving me homework to do to look into Sony a little bit more for that side. But I think their crutch far was their technology and their clarity and who uses their products for what. I don't see them going down. But what I see TCL doing is that if they take over that side, the name is already big. And from what I saw, and the fact they are one of 2, probably one of 8 sponsors, but they're the only ones on the tag. On the bench. And they had that for 2 years straight. So whatever they're doing, they're great. But you'll start seeing them in Hisense. There's one more brand that was actually really good.
I mean, you kind of have to figure that, there's always, when you start really talking about the global economy and how a lot of that stuff works, man, it's very difficult to ignore the billions of people that make up the Chinese economy, right? And in order for you as a business to truly break in and be able to sell your product there, you generally need to make sure that you're doing business with Chinese companies, right? And so it could be a very strategic move for Sony as a Japanese company if they want to increase their footprint or their market share in a place like China, which is like, it's the same thing you see happening with movies here, right? You can talk your Netflix and, your AMC and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the production houses, Hollywood knows that the majority of the money to be made is China's one of the biggest markets for movies, right? Because there's so many people. But in order to be seen there, you have to bend to some of the things that they want and have things be a certain way in order for your stuff to even get shown there, right? And so it could be that it makes a lot of sense for them from a strategic partnership standpoint, not just to have access to the manufacturing, capabilities of a company like TCL, but it also could be that like Sony as a company that really wants to continue to push high-end stuff here in the US with tariffs and all that kind of stuff looming, maybe that means that, TCL is taking that on as the 51% owner. I think the thing that has most people concerned is that it's not a 50-50
split.
effort. It's a 51-49, which is like, that to me says that Sony is allowing TCL to take over a certain portion of their business, and that means that they're going to have the majority and they're going to have more say so. right? And so it could go in directions we wouldn't expect it to normally go, which is a place we don't generally expect to see Sony sitting in, right? When we think of Sony, just for what we know, it's hard for us to really think about them as not being the number one or not being the highest. But we've known for years that Samsung's been outdoing Sony, and that Samsung and LG too, and that most Sony TVs had Samsung screens in them, and like all that kind of, again, like a lot of these manufacturers work together with each other. Who's doing the sound chip and what TV, and who's, you know, a lot of these companies, if you open them up, you're going to find a lot of company names, people who are loyal to one company. You'll open your TV or your computer or whatever, and you'll see a lot of companies that you say you don't like, you'll see their stuff in there, right? That's the nature of the business. So it's an interesting move. Again, nothing is set in stone, but we'll see, right? Like, we'll see how it turns out. It'll be interesting to see whether or not we start to see more Sony branded TVs at a lower price point, because that's really where TCL managed to truly break into the market here, was having high quality at lower price points. So we'll see what that means, because if Sony then has TVs that are a lower price point, you're probably looking at higher sales, because a lot of people, TCL is like Insignia. Yeah, they're like, who is that? What is that? But when they see the Sony name, so like TCL, you immediately go do a lot better.
Yeah,
by having Sony's branding, you know what I mean? Having Bravia on there, having Sony, it just makes sense.
Then it's like us that come in to tell you behind the scenes and stuff like that.
Right. Exactly.
What? And you'd be like, for real?
Yeah.
We
knew that Insignia's TVs was made by Samsung and LG. But nobody else did.
They ain't care.
You know,
but yeah, it's just all these other brands have just been getting much better over the years. So it's like when you had like your Sony that was sitting on top of the throne, but when you had like Hisense coming in here, and there was a point in time, you know, I was like, Hisense. I definitely did that in TCL when they first started showing up.
Yeah, because Hisense started selling refrigerators and washing machines at the same time they started dropping TVs on us, and it was like, hold on now.
Wait a minute.
Pick you know what I mean? Pick a lane.
Westinghouse out there, Joe. I was like,
ooh,
yeah.
Hey, you know what, dog? You just throwing your age all around today, huh, man?
I'm just saying they was out there, and I was like,
they was.
I was like,
I definitely had a Westinghouse monitor. I'm not, I can't hold you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. First robot, Westinghouse. You know what I'm saying? All right. So look, let's move on to the next one. K, you're up, bro.
Number 3. I'll go back and watch them so I can hear that.
My man is warming his vocals up. You know what I mean? Getting ready for it. Jokes, I need your assistance with this. If you jump into the Google Doc, I'm gonna need you to grab in the actual run of show. I didn't drop it in the links tab. I dropped it in with the run of show. So, all right, look. We talk a lot about Fortnite here. And they keep announcing new collaborations and so forth. And I've been very much on the like, Fortnite is not getting that space back on my console. I'm not giving them that hard drive space. However, today, they keep trying. Jokes, did you find the link?
I have it.
Man, look, throw the link up so we can. I don't even want to say it. Just throw the link up so I can discuss whether or not I need to make space. You know what I'm saying? That's already a problem.
Is it choppy?
No, it's cool on my end.
In the shadows, ancient evils and dark forces. The natural order is at stake. And so, new heroes shall rise. What will you do?
Can you just have like generic Fortnite characters in D&D, right? You're going into the realm of Dungeons and Dragons, shooting guns, choosing a class, choosing gear, getting a party, co-op, actually doing dice rolls. I might play
Fight the dragon.
Fight the zombie dragon.
Rise up. Become a hero.
So we talking about their co-op.
Oh, it's already available. Oh,
Correct.
oh,
Came out today. So they actually released. So they did like 5 new maps that are all D&D related maps, but different stuff that you can do in them. That one is the one that's like the most important to me. It's like jumping in co-op, put the code in. Might have to run some Dungeons and Dragons in Fortnite, bro. Like it might just be the move. The folks that put that together have actually created some of the best stuff in Fortnite, those separate worlds that they allow people to create. And you know, they got D&D. And on that note, also today, Doug Bowser, who is formerly the president of Nintendo of America, he officially retired from Nintendo on December 31st, so the last day of the year. Nintendo has a new co-president for Nintendo of America, but he just joined the board of directors for Hasbro, which owns Dungeons and Dragons. And we haven't really discussed Hasbro as an IP owner. We've talked a lot about WB. We've talked tons about Disney. But like, I just want to kind of go down the list. Somebody like Doug Bowser kind of coming into them as a lot of the success that Hasbro has seen over the last like 2 years or so, 3 years. Most of it is based in Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of it is based in, especially like Baldur's Gate 3 and the success of Baldur's Gate 3. You know, they've seen a huge uptick in interest in that, along with like Magic the Gathering, their ownership of Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering, those cards, and like all of the IP that now they're beginning to add in with like the new Spider-Man decks and the Final Fantasy decks and all of that kind of stuff, right? But Hasbro, Heather said, didn't Hasbro collect IP like Pokemon? Kind of. I'm gonna run, like, I want to run this down. Like, think like, so okay, obviously Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, Monopoly, Nerf, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Peppa Pig, Play-Doh, Power Rangers, My Little Pony, Mr. Potato Head, Twister, Bop It, Furbies. Hasbro owns a lot of IP. And this could be the very beginning of us really seeing more integration in the way. Like, I don't think, maybe we seen G.I. Joe in Fortnite? I feel like we did. But like if we haven't,
Cobra Commander, yeah, I think so, because I think I do remember the gameplay with Cobra Commander.
Andrew said Hasbro needs
listen,
to get what a fan of Power Rangers really wants. I mean, look.
Listen, I would love to be able to throw my hat in there and try to give a try at making a new series. Like, I'm open right now what they're apparently doing with this semi-reboot, whatever it is that they're doing. But right now, there's nothing that we really know about it. So,
truthfully, for Power Rangers right now, the comic books is where it's at. Like, that's... And the same thing for Transformers. / G.I. Joe. Like,
it's probably the best place. It's probably the best place for it, honestly. Like, the only thing sometimes I think they could do like animation, because I feel like just there's some things they just will not tackle on this live action front with Power Rangers. So, but the comics, they go on the ends.
Not too sure about Power Rangers, but basically, G.I. Joe, they can do the cartoon. Take it back. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, they have consistently put out new Transformer stuff in animated forms. Like, they've done web series. Like, Transformers really hasn't gone away. Even if it hasn't been great, it's still been like in the zeitgeist. G.I. Joe's been a little bit different, but like they've had the recent movies that, you know, kind of are on the fishtail of like somewhere between what Fast and Furious is and what the MCU is. Like, you know what I mean? And that last Transformers movie where they basically announced at the end the crossover with G.I. Joe was like, I mean, all right, but
They trying.
if for Power Rangers, I'll be honest, if they could get away from the live action and get into animation, I think it would do them really, really well. Like if they were to partner up with the animation team, and if they were to take a note out of the Voltron book and partner up with the same folks that did Avatar: The Last Airbender and let them do a Power Rangers show, because what they did with Voltron was incredible for like 6 seasons.
Yeah, solid 6 seasons.
That's a team that I would trust to take Power Rangers from the live action into animation, do it direct to Netflix, then do a Power Rangers movie that's an animated one that goes to theaters. And I would like trust them to put like a new enough twist on it and make it still feel nostalgic enough that you would gain new people, but also have all the original people who loved it. You know what I mean? In the same way. And if I was him, that's what I'd be looking at. I'd be looking at somebody to do something like that and just take it to that. And again, like, not be afraid to kind of push the envelope a little bit more and be a little bit more adult with the animation and the action and so forth that like they haven't really been able to do. Or they get the team that did the Batman and Jackie Chan adventures to do it.
Hey, listen, I wouldn't be mad at that. Those were excellent.
Yeah. Jokes, is the D&D joint enough to get you to jump back into Fortnite?
I don't know if that's the one. Like, it's definitely interesting to be able to jump in, and I just
it's the co-op, but
yeah,
I looked at the hard drives. I looked at the hard drive space where that joint was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if you're worth it, bro. We'll see. All right, so look, let's move into the next segment. Kate, one of the reasons why you're here is because that like first week of January, you took a trip to Vegas, went to CES. You all have been paying attention to our Instagram, our YouTube shorts. You've been seeing a lot of the content that Domingo put together while he was at CES, checking out all the new latest tech and so forth. And while we can't show you all of his favorite stuff here because
some of that stuff will not fly on this show right now.
Can't show you all of his favorite stuff here. Domingo has put together his top 5. Jokes, are you able to see the chat?
Yep.
All right, cool. Because I need to jump over here so I can grab some of these images. Domingo is going to go through his top 5 products from CES 2026. Domingo, talk to me about what's up first.
All right. So first, for those that don't know, CES is the Consumer Electronics Show. I know everybody pretty much knows that. Well, all the big tech companies get to come through and showcase their actual merchandise. I tried to hustle and try to buy some things. I should have came back the last day because that's what they did last year. They were trying to not take everything home and pretty much was selling things out. But they were hardcore on it. They weren't trying to sell me nothing. But it was really, 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 really good this year. Especially getting to go into the creator space, which was nice. But they didn't let me in there last year. They said you had to have a media badge, but didn't have a media badge this year. And I got to go into their podcast rooms they had set up in there, which is pretty cool. It was really nice. I wish they had something like that over here on the East Coast. But I saw a lot of different items that I really liked. It wasn't really difficult narrowing down to the top 5, but what me and Gage was talking about earlier was the fact that technically I said all these could be number 1, and he told me math doesn't work that way, so I had to do some things.
No, what I said was every team can't win the Super Bowl each year. Like, that's not how it works. And you was like, nah, I could. No,
that is not possible.
Come on, guys.
My man said participation trophies.
Listen, I
right,
told him
exactly.
what I
That's what
told
we
him
gonna do.
was he was trying to pull us in because he ain't want to. He was like, technically, all these my number one. Hey, bro, I need to know what order to put these joints in, bro. So you need to help me, dog.
We put them in the Dylon, the top 5.
There you go.
Dylon, and Dylon.
Yeah.
All right. So number 5 is the Amazon Ember 55, 65-inch Artline TV. Now, what got me was because Amazon had, and again, you'll see it later on when the site's Instagram or YouTube. Everybody had massive sites that was there. Now, it wasn't like if you go to like some of the cons and you have the con where somebody has a big, pretty much presentation, but never like this. So this is more so like they had an entire house in like a small city, I should say. But LG ruled. LG had a city in their stuff. But when I walked in, there was this really cool canvases on the wall, and it looked like art, but it was a TV. But it was really cool because you can actually change the actual frame of it to be darker wood, gold, silver, walnut, black, whatever you want to do. And around the edges, that's what it was. Now it was still just a TV, but it made the artwork look great. Now it came with like about maybe 2,000 pieces of art that you can do. Plus, what me and Vicky was talking about was could we show our stuff? Because we was just saying we're photographers, we want to be able to show our stuff on there too. They said fine. Now there's the other thing that made it funny. It had a little bit of AI in it because basically what it was, it said, okay, walking down the street. And if you put like 15 pictures or 100 pictures of people walking on the street, they'll find all 100 of those. Or somebody walk down the street in a blue shirt, and they'll find all the people walking in a blue shirt and then categorize it. Or type in grandma, or type in whoever, and it take all the pictures of grandma and make a frame out of that one, which I thought was pretty cool. Besides what it was. So when I asked him, I said, hey, what was it? And the guy said, I'm trying to remember how he said it. I said, well, how much? And he said it was $8,900, and then it was 15. So I said, oh, well, we talking about 8,900 and 15,000. He said, no, $899. I said, $899. And he said, what? And he said, and the 65 was something stupid like about $1,100. I said, $1,100 for a 65-inch TV that does that? And I was just like, could you sell it right now? That's about it. So that's
just need you to ship that back across the states.
Yeah, I mean, it was just that impressive because I thought because everything was going to be like super expensive, and it wasn't. For the quality that it was on there, when you see the video come up, it's really, really nice to do that. So I think the price was good, the customization was good, the little piece of AI was good, and the fact that it was just not only that, it was a TV, and so pretty cool. My number 4 is Hisense, the Hisense 116 mini RGB LED. Now, this particular picture compared to what it was. Now, Hisense was another one who had like a little mini city inside this spot. So they had their arms and like everything from, like we joked earlier, refrigerators, things like that. But when we talking about that, last year Hisense had that car that drive by itself. And it was like, and on the windows, you could be watching your movies and doing your shows and stuff like that. I didn't put the LG in there. I might do them as a runner-up at the end, but that was pretty cool. And it was actually really, really massive on the front. They had some people come through, and they were like, they had little, I know if you look at like, not like diamonds, but if you look at film and you try to look at the film developers part where it has like a little suction cup that goes on it, they had that in their hand, and they were getting a tour of, and they would walk up to them and put the actual magnifying glass on the screen to see how many pixels it was in one cluster. So that was pretty cool. I mean, I looked up the price. The price for that one so far, for what I found, was like $25,000.
Wow.
So, but again, just when you thought it was that way, LG smoked them out with a 136-inch TV. But But this Hisense joint, it was really, really, really tough though.
Mini LED, RGB specifically, and micro LED RGB are, really, they were really big. Kind of talks of the town. A lot of the companies are starting to come through with that kind of technology. You even have companies like Govee, who are, they basically just do lighting and stuff like that, and they have specifically their own micro LED RGB, and the difference being that RGB is what we used to have in your old CRTs. If you were one of them kids that will put your face up against your old tube TV, and you can see the little green, the red, and the blue pixels that were there that make up all the rest of the colors, having the micro LEDs, but that also do RGB, it's just giving you much more precise color, and having them be micro or mini is allowing you to capture that color more precisely in a smaller area, which just means your overall picture quality is tighter and more precise. Your blacks are better, lines are cleaner, that kind of thing. And that's, really what the big deal is. And because that tech itself is so new, that's why a TV like this one that he's talking about, at not just at the sizes, but like is so much more expensive than like what you're getting out of what was said in his number 5, right? Is going to be because you have that very new tech. But the reality of it is, more and more companies were kind of sneaking in with stuff like that, and the expectation is more companies are going to continue to come with stuff like that throughout this year, and then you're going to begin to see those prices drop. And so by this time next year, it'll be more regular, and they'll have something new. And this tech, as good as it is, will kind of come down in price, and you'll see stuff more like what we see now.
This is true. You sure?
What's your number 3?
Number 3, I gotta practice this. It's Sitsu. This was really a great find for walking through CES, because I personally have been looking for something like this as a secondary monitor to where I am right now, versus actually spending another $1,100 or whatever on this monitor I have now. And so I'm like, well, this is cool because you could use it with your phone, which I just saw the commercial today was crazy. You can use it for any tablet. You can use it for your computer. You can use it for your laptop, and you just make it a secondary monitor. So it's pretty cool because they had different versions that were touchscreen, and they have versions that was just like you could just twist around. But the cool cloth that comes with it, the carrying case, the magnetic stand comes with it. And when I found it, it came in black as well too. And then they said the guy said they were either he was from or they were from like not suit, but somewhat they had some other things around. It was really funny where he said they had their stuff from, but I did a little history. They said the guy graduated from like Virginia Tech. So but he said something different about what it was. But and again, this is a really cool monitor because again, when you're doing stuff pretty much long screen, like you want to have it like regular, like 16:9 is cool. If you're editing something for social media, you may want to flip it. So you got to have 2 different monitors. But this one, you just kind of turn to the side, go through there. And if you're on your break or you're doing your thing and you want to look at your phone on the bigger screen, maybe you're trying to show a movie or maybe you're trying to work on something that you need to pay more attention to. This is that. And they had like technically like about 3 or 4 colors that came for certain size. The one that's on the picture right now,
like that purple
16 or the 14. They had in purple, and they had some other ones in black. But this is actually really, really cool, really, really sleek. I loved it, and I plan on adding this soon. But I definitely need something like this, for going out. You DJ and you want to just play some cool videos while you're up, or maybe you just want to just like, hey, just want to lounge out and just look at a movie, something, but on the bigger screen of your phone. There you go.
Dope, broski. What's
All right.
At number 2.
Number 2 is going to be the Edifier wireless speaker system. This is a video that's probably already up, and I'm gonna tell you, this is exactly what it was. You had people that had companies. Again, they had a small city. There was like more like a big row house on there. So they had like massive setups, but this setup was cool. But I was walking past, heard a DJ, and I looked and I said, okay, great, no problem. So when I heard the song did not drop, like it was in the part just before it was about to drop. As soon as the bass hit, I turned around. I was like, "There's no way you're getting this from these speakers right here. What's going on?" And then so the dude saw me look that way, told me exactly what it was, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" And I walked over to it. So basically, what it is, it's a wireless active speaker system. So now you might got big speakers that actually have like a cable that goes to the wall, but it got to hook up to some kind of amp. You know what I'm saying? Or you're going to actually be able to say you're going to have what's the cable that's running from each one of them. It could be thin or it could be a little bit of adapter, but no, these were active Bluetooth or wireless speaker, however they did their wireless, whatever technology it was using. And then they had an active sub as well too. So you could take it on the wall. Subwoofer wireless ain't really not a big thing. But these two that came out, it's like the sound quality. I don't know, the video can't even really do it justice, dude. But I'm talking about a huge arena.
Yeah.
And when I walked by, the speaker's about this tall, the subwoofer's about that tall, but it was killing it. And I was like, that's crazy. But another thing is the price. Again, you think it's going to be something like $500 for one speaker. Nah, you get the whole bookshelf for like either $139, starting at $139, and they had whole systems that was like $600. They came with both speakers and a subwoofer. And then they
not bad at all.
They had the monitors like for like if you're doing studio work. They had a lot of vinyl. Vinyl was huge, and they had them there as well too. They look like clip speakers, yeah. But they were like smaller, and I like the all white ones. But these ones right here, they just took the grills off. And if you look at the video on our Instagram channel and on YouTube, you'll see. But like I said, I don't know if the sound is going to really resonate, but I'm just telling you. Imagine walking down the street and somebody got like a tiny boom box. And when you turn around, when the bass hit on a club song, chest is tight. I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. So yeah. All right. So I'm going to do my runner up before technically I do the other one. So okay. So my runner up was pretty much LG. I didn't get the model number, but LG and Hisense might as well have like between each other probably like about at least 25% of whatever that whole center was. That was them. They had a whole city. Mm-hmm. They had this car, and they had windows and stuff in the car. And the car actually, if you were walking down the street, and let's say you delivered a package, and somebody they were an ASL person, they couldn't hear. That person would actually sign outside the window. It would tell you what the sign is inside the window. And then you would speak, and then outside the window, it was signed to the person that was back out there. Same way if somebody was speaking French and you had the window halfway rolled down, they would understand you and it would print outside the glass. They would talk in their language and they'd be in the car like that. It was incredible. You taking pictures outside the car. The car's driving on the street and you say, I want to take a picture of that. This big square comes up in focus. You touch the window. Now you took a picture of what you were trying to take a picture out the car, and it comes to your cell phone right there. It was.
I understand, dog. You telling me that this joint is your honorable mention?
Yeah.
Your number one gotta be.
Oh, that joint gotta be wild.
Crazy, dog.
That joint gotta be wild.
Hey, no, listen,
it was a secret number one. We can't.
Hey, bro, listen. Hey, listen. Cause I feel like you be cheating. Cause you know what I'm saying? You just pulled an Okie. Like you didn't tell me none of this when we was getting the show ready or whatever. Now all of a sudden you got extras. All five of these joints was your number one. You over here trying to massage the joint in. Stop playing with me, dog.
Massage.
Calm yourself.
Hey,
Calm yourself.
What I'm gonna do right quick is before I get my number one, I'm gonna slide this other joint. Man, that joint sound like some Minority Report. That joint sounds like it should definitely be.
And listen, when I post the video, it's more. It's more than that.
This is the high LG.
It's more than it does on that one. That's the thing I can remember to tell you. All right. So my number one, I'm going to put this on my number one because it took me. This is probably why I did that, because it took me 11 takes to record this. And I'm gonna make sure I put all 11 takes up on it as well too. This is the 4-movie projector. Now, there's a reason why this 4-movie projector is the thing. Now, this may be a different model because it basically had a laser throw. So now it can go really close to the wall, but project up to like about maybe 150, probably 200. And the key thing about this is I saw this one name, which always wins with me. And this is the reason why it's my number one, besides the 11 takes it took to get there. The speaker system is inside of it is Bowers and Wilkins. And that's my all-time greatest favorite speaker company. Clips is a close number 1A, but Bowers and Wilkins is where all movies get mastered. I know.
How do you say what?
I know.
Cheating, bro. He be cheating. When I asked, you remember when I asked Kay when I was talking about the Batman Nolan trilogy, and I was like, "Which one's your favorite one?" And he was like, "Which one's the best one?" He was like, "For real, if I had to say, I'm gonna say all of them.
All of them
can't be the best one, bro."
Oh man,
like, he be trying to cheat.
I know, man. I'm sorry, man, because it's honestly, I didn't get to go everywhere I really wanted to go out there for that sense. So no, I'm quite sure there's probably some other stuff that really would have got me, but for the places that I went to specifically, like my true number one, I specifically went to that. I was like, this is off the beaten path, but they had stuff everywhere. Almost every hotel, they had either lectures and or actual what you call them, installments that was there. So they had those. But I like that one because it was really, really nice. The projector was cool. The sound was great. I don't know how much you really get the sound from out of the projector from Bowers and Wilkins, but it's still cool. I know the car show's coming up, and I always look for good dashes. But when people have those and Bowers and Wilkins speakers inside, it's always a win to me. So that's what really made this my number one, because that was the first thing that I kind of was like, oh my God, I got to go check this out. And it's like I said, it took 11 takes to get that together. So I mean, I know I told y'all this before. I said shout out to y'all. I mean, I thought I would be a lot more pristine in this sense, but when we go up and do stuff live, man, I'm telling you, if you've never done it before, it's difficult. It's difficult. You don't want to sound crazy, but that's why we're gonna play a drinking game with the word actually. I'm gonna see y'all the video that I had. I don't know, you'll probably die before this song is over. The video
don't do that to our people.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can certainly, a lot of times, right, when you talk about projectors, the issue with most people with projectors is that projectors don't generally have sound that comes from them, right? They generally focus on just a picture. The projector has to be away, or it's up high, or you got to sit on a table, and you don't really find a lot of projectors that have audio included with them. And if you do, it certainly isn't usually high-end audio.
It filled the room up. They had like gaming in there. They was playing like a gaming trailer, and it was sitting back on the couch. So I didn't really want to jump in front of everybody, but you got to get the shot. So when they came, the only speakers that was actually in the room was inside of that. And I'm telling you, the luxuriousness of that score they were playing for that video game, man, I almost didn't want to leave the room. It was really pretty intense, though. So it was very nice to be there. I
bet it was Expedition 33 jokes.
Ooh,
that's what it was.
Might be.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, couple things. One, great job out there at CES. I want to say that publicly in front of everybody, man. Glad you got a chance to go out there and make the trip. CES is like that's dream positioning for us. It's it's our other E3. You know what I mean? E3 used to be part of CES, so it's great that you get a chance to go down there and grab some of that stuff. For us, I'm glad to have you jump on here with us and talk about the things that were your favorites, even if all of them are your favorites.
All I know.
You know what I mean? Yeah, man, great job, great content. Y'all continue to keep looking because he's got more stuff that still is going live and that kind of stuff coming out of CES.
Yo, Patreon people, yeah, I got everything.
You're gonna find his real favorite stuff on Patreon.
Brace yourself.
Listen, let me just say this. Brace yourself. Be
God damn
Be
it.
of age.
This is
You know what I'm
K we
saying?
talking
Like,
about.
let me just, yeah. They don't know. Listen, jokes. They don't know. You can't say that. Like, they don't know what we know. Like, you can't just say to them, "This is K we talk about." That doesn't. They don't know that yet. Like, you just, there's a lot of things they show at CES. Some of the things they show at CES and demonstrate at CES are not things that you can just post anywhere. But Patreon gonna get to see it.
Yep.
That's what that's coming down to. Jokes, listen. We're now in the honorable mentions area of the show.
Uh-oh.
And look, I have an honorable mention.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't quite like I came across this earlier today. So Spotify has a new update that they did recently. And even though the feature isn't technically live just yet, okay, they added a feature inside of Spotify. It's called Page Match, right? And
Hold on one
what
second.
it
Right quick before you, I gotta throw this up there. Heather is like,
Hey Heather said I embraced all caps though.
Sure. Yes, okay.
Nah, she ready.
All
Yep. Spotify's new feature is called Page Match. And what it does is it lets you scan a page from a book you're reading with your camera on your phone. And then Spotify finds the audiobook and allows the audiobook to pick up from where you left off actually reading. So from a paperback book or from like an ebook. And I think the reason why it's not live yet is because they're trying to work out some of the, like not all versions of a book, like the page counts aren't always exactly the same, right? From like a paperback to a hardback to, whatever, aren't always the same. But I just thought it was kind of a cool thing. I know people who do both. I know people who do audio books, but who also, read books when they get a chance to sit down at home. But obviously, if they're driving or if they're on a train, they might not want to take the whole book out and kind of, whatever. But so they tend to do audiobooks. I just think it's kind of a neat feature. I'm interested in seeing how they market it to people. But it is part of the reason why I think it's interesting is because anytime you have technology that makes some portion of one thing maybe better for some people, it scares an industry, right? And so, bookstores kind of started to go away. Like they really did basically go away, right? And people are kind of pushing back on having physical books and that kind of thing.
yeah.
And the love of those things. But what ebooks did to the physical book industry is the same thing that people are afraid of streaming doing to movie theaters and DVD sales and so forth, right? But to have a thing that says, nah, it's cool if you have the audio book or the ebook, still go purchase the physical book, or if you have the audio book, still go purchase, the ebook. And, when you're sitting down and you want to actually read it, you can read it. But if it's going to help out, so that you can listen to it on the train or listen to it when you're driving, you can kind of pick up where you left off. I just think that's a cool way to kind of allow the technology to assist with the physical, piece of it. I see Alfonso jumped in. What's up, Alfonso? How you feeling, broski? Good to see you. Been a little while. Yeah, so I just thought that was kind of cool. We don't need to go any further into it. If they make an announcement to do something, we'll double back on it. On that note, so upcoming events. So Blerdcon is coming up in the beginning of March. We are very excited.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
We
did just get our press confirmation as well as our confirmation for one of our panels for the Being Comfortable Being a Geek panel. So our Being Comfortable Being a Geek panel, let's see, they gave us a date, didn't they, Jokes?
Yep, it's Saturday at 4.
No. Friday.
Or Friday at 4.
Friday, March 6th, from 4 to 4:50. In Washington B, inside the Hyatt. So, we're locked in for that. Press badges are locked in. Panel badges are locked in. Blerdcon is coming.
Can't
Get
wait.
ready. The week following that is AwesomeCon.
I know, right?
It's back to back now. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So look, look for us out there. If you're going, if you don't have badges, let me tell you about Geek Nick. And if I can't tell you about Geek Nick, let me tell you about Freak Nick. And if I can't tell you about Freak Nick, wait till you see the videos from CES that Domingo about to post on Patreon. I can't. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
what it's gonna be about.
Yeah. So yeah, we got Blerdcon coming up in a couple weeks. Katsu is coming. I don't know if we're going to Katsu. Jokes, how you feeling?
Indecisive. Like I know I've said this to you. I kind of want to go just because of the fact that it's in the Gaylord. Like I just love being in the Gaylord. Like, it's just fun. So I don't know. Maybe a sneak through for maybe like a day or so. I haven't decided yet. But
there is a possibility. Right now, it's looking like we also may be in Big Lick and Roanoke. We don't have confirmation on that just yet, but that is also only in like a couple weeks. So we're kind of waiting to see exactly what happens with that. There's a good chance we'll be there. But we'll let you know when we know for sure. Right now, Blerdcon is locked in. So we just want to make sure you guys know that. At this point, I would like to thank all of you for hanging out with us this evening. It has been wonderful to have you. I'm so grateful you were here. I want to give that special shout out to the lurkers, those of you who are hanging out, chilling in the chat, not saying a word. You're just as important as everybody else is. So thank you too. One more backup shout out to our Patreon members. Jokes. Tell the folks what I need them to know.
Remember, y'all, just because you have a well thought out plan doesn't make it a good idea.
With that, we're out. Toodles and lose.
Loading snacks.